Hello, all you freedom-loving people. A House committee voted to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell, and after Fed Chair Powell was referred to the DOJ, Scott Bessent called for an audit of the Fed, and did Comey overlook key evidence in the Hillary email server case? Okay, let's get into it. Recently, Representative Tim Burchett sent a letter to Chairman James Comer and requested a subpoena for Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony. In response, Comer directed him to introduce a motion to subpoena Maxwell for her deposition. And today, the House Oversight Committee Democrats voted unanimously to subpoena Maxwell to have her appear for a deposition. In addition, at the direction of Attorney General Pam Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche reached out to Ghislaine Maxwell to ask, "What do you know?" In a statement posted on X by Blanche, he confirmed that he has contacted Maxwell's counsel. While President Trump was meeting with the president of the Philippines in the Oval Office today, he was asked what he thought about Blanche reaching out to Maxwell, and President Trump said that he thought it is appropriate.
They're going to what? Meet her?
Your Deputy Attorney General has reached out to Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney asking for a new interview.
Yeah, I don't know about it, but I think it's something that sounds appropriate to do, yeah.
Do you have any concern that your Deputy Attorney General, as your former attorney, would be conducting the interview, given...
No, I have no concern. He's a very talented person. He's very smart. I didn't know that they were going to do it. I don't really follow that too much.
So when might the deposition happen? A committee spokesperson said in a statement, since Ms. Maxwell is in a federal prison, the committee will work with the Department of Justice and Bureau of Prisons to identify a date when committee can depose her. Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year sentence for child sex trafficking and related offenses, but any Epstein-related matter is most likely going to have to wait until after the House returns from their summer break in September, since they decided to leave on Wednesday, a day early. And also today, when President Trump met with Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos, they made a trade deal. The Philippines is going open market with the United States and zero tariffs, and the Philippines will pay a 19% tariff. President Trump also announced a trade deal with Indonesia. Indonesia will open their market to American industrial, agricultural, and tech products. The U.S. will sell products to Indonesia at a tariff rate of 0, while Indonesia will pay 19% on all their products coming into America. Also, they will supply us with critical minerals while they will buy our energy, farm products, and aircraft. And it was also announced today that the United States will withdraw from UNESCO by the end of 2026 because of ideological differences, anti-Israel bias, and its globalist agenda. This marks the third U.S. withdrawal from the agency. It first happened under Reagan in 1984 over pro-Soviet concerns, then under President Trump in 2017, and now again. The U.S. rejoined in 2023 under President Biden, who argued that re-engagement was crucial to counter China's growing influence within the organization. But a 2023 report from the Washington-based Uyghur Human Rights Project found UNESCO complicit with the Chinese regime's abuses by staying silent and shielding the Chinese Communist Party's atrocities against Uyghurs and their culture. Yesterday, we mentioned that Jerome Powell was officially referred to the DOJ for criminal charges over the renovation project costs of the Eccles building. Today, let's dig into some more details. Under normal circumstances, the president cannot remove the Fed chair, but that does not mean that the 4-year term of the Fed chair cannot be interrupted. Current Fed Chair Jerome Powell is facing the possibility that he might be fired before his term expires in mid-2026. As we mentioned a couple of times, a $2.5 billion renovation of the Federal Reserve headquarters is the cause of the incident. The renovation's original budget was about $1.9 billion in 2019, but it has soared to $2.5 billion so far. And Representative Anna Paulina Luna is accusing Powell of perjury on 2 occasions. Luna said in a letter to the DOJ, on June 25, 2025, Chairman Powell provided testimony under oath before the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs regarding the renovation of the Federal Reserve's Eccles building. In his statements, he made several material false claims. Specifically, she accused him of characterizing the changes that escalated the cost of the project from $1.9 billion to $2.5 billion as minor. Luna wrote, However, documents reviewed by congressional investigators indicate that the scope and cost overruns of this project were neither minor in nature nor in substance. She claimed that his assertion that the increase was intended to streamline construction and avoid further delays was incorrect. She pointed out, according to the Federal Reserve's final submission to the National Capital Planning Commission, the revised plan includes a VIP private dining room, premium marble finishes, modernized elevators, water features, and a rooftop terrace garden. Features that Powell publicly denied existed. While Powell presented the changes as simplifications, the actual project plans suggest the opposite. So, in addition to fines, perjury charges can be punishable by up to 5 years in prison. But Powell denied all accusations of perjury, and he has directed a formal watchdog probe into the renovation project costs of the Eccles building. According to the Fed's website, the renovation was approved back in 2017 and is funded annually by the Board of Directors. According to the Washington Post, the Fed's renovation project was approved by the board in 2017 and originally cost $1.9 billion in 2019. The total budget rose from the initial $1.9 billion to $2.5 billion, mainly due to the significant increase in the cost of construction materials, such as steel and cement during the pandemic. In addition, the fact that some of the construction is underground has also pushed up the overall cost. After Trump officials requested an on-site visit, though, to tour the building renovations, the request was declined on Monday, and instead they were given a virtual site visit. On Monday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent criticized the Fed, but his criticism was not that the Fed renovation costs exceeded the budget, but rather his criticism was that the Fed was slow to cut interest rates.
Joe, I think that what we need to do is examine the entire Federal Reserve institution and whether they have been successful. I'm speaking, actually, I'm going to be in the building this evening. There is a regulatory conference that begins tomorrow. I'm the keynote speaker tonight talking about regulation. The Fed as well deals with monetary policy, regulations, financial stability. And again, I think that we should think, has the organization succeeded in its mission? You know, if this were the FAA and we were having this many mistakes, we would go back and look at why has this happened? I mean, look at as you said at the top of this broadcast, there was fear mongering over tariffs, and thus far we have seen very little, if any, inflation. We've had great inflation numbers. So, I think this idea of them not being able to break out of a certain mindset, all these PhDs over there, I don't know what they do. This is like universal basic income for, academic economists.
Later, Bassant took to X to release a scathing statement demanding a full-scale institutional audit, not just of monetary policy, but of the Fed's ever-growing empire of unchecked influence. He wrote, "It is my belief that the central bank should conduct an exhaustive internal review of its non-monetary policy operations. Significant mission creep and institutional growth have taken the Fed into areas that potentially jeopardize the independence of its core monetary policy mission." Although Bassant recognizes that the independence of the Fed is a cornerstone of the continued U.S. economic growth and stability, he is concerned that the autonomy of the Fed is being misused. He also wrote, however, this autonomy is threatened by persistent mandate creep into areas beyond its core mission, provoking justifiable criticism that unnecessarily casts a cloud over the Fed's valuable independence on monetary policy. Bessent called on the Fed to conduct an exhaustive internal review of its non-monetary policy operations. He wrote, "The Fed does regular reviews of its monetary policy framework. I would urge Fed leadership to similarly undertake, publish, and implement a comprehensive institutional review across its entire mission to buttress its credibility. It will go a long way towards strengthening the Fed's credibility with the American people on its core mission of guiding our nation's monetary policy." Yesterday, we mentioned that the documents for the Hillary Clinton private email server investigation were declassified. So, what do they reveal? The classified documents reveal that then FBI Director James Comey was influenced by secret classified intelligence reports to cover up key evidence and to announce an early termination of the investigation into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The report was unsealed by order of Attorney General Pam Bondi at the request of Congressman Chuck Grassley, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Grassley said in a Monday press release, "This document shows an extreme lack of effort and due diligence in the FBI's investigation of former Secretary Clinton's email usage and mishandling of highly classified information." Hillary was investigated by the FBI for mishandling classified information on a private email server at her home while serving as Secretary of State. The investigation was internally named the Mid-Year Exam. This new unsealed report is a classified appendix to the FBI's investigation into Hillary's email gate. The appendix was written by the Office of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz in 2018. The appendix criticized the FBI for politicizing this investigation. The report claimed that the FBI mishandled the Hillary email investigation, even failing to investigate a flash drive that contained potentially critical information. Grassley said, "Under Comey's leadership, the FBI failed to perform fundamental investigative work and left key pieces of evidence on the cutting room floor." Comey unilaterally announced in a July 2016 speech that the investigation was over and no charges had been filed against Hillary. At the time, it was about 4 months before Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's election day. Around the same time, the Federal Bureau of Investigation officially launched the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into whether Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump's campaign colluded with Russia to influence the outcome of the election. Grassley contrasted the FBI's approach to the Clinton investigation with its treatment of Donald Trump's collusion with Russia. Grassley said, "The Comey FBI's negligent approach and perhaps intentional lack of effort in the Clinton investigation is a stark contrast to its full-throated investigation of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, which was based on the uncorroborated and now discredited Steele dossier. Comey's decision-making process smacks of political infection." And Representative Nancy Mace suggested that if Hillary smashed her email server with a hammer and her case was dropped, then the same standard should be applied to Donald Trump. She wrote on X, "Hillary Clinton used a hammer to destroy evidence of a private email server and classified information on that server and was never indicted. The same standard should apply to everyone, including Donald Trump." Let's go through a timeline that was compiled from declassified reports covering key points in time related to the FBI's investigation of Hillary and related events. In June of 2015, according to intelligence reports and declassified appendices, Democratic leadership knew about the information regarding Hillary's private email server and potential corruption at the Clinton Foundation, but they failed to act on it. In late May of 2016, the FBI's Office of Legal Counsel drafted a memorandum proposing to review USB flash drives containing sensitive information related to Hillary's private email server for a thorough and complete investigation and to assess national security risks. However, this memorandum was not finalized or submitted, and the flash drive was not reviewed. The FBI obtained 2 intelligence reports alleging ties between then DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz and individuals associated with the Soros Open Society Foundations. The report, which accused the Obama administration of trying to interfere with the mid-year exam investigation to protect Hillary's candidacy, were deemed not credible on the surface by the FBI and were not investigated further. In June of 2016, then Attorney General Loretta Lynch met with former President Bill Clinton on the tarmac of the Phoenix airport, prompting public questions about the impartiality of the investigation, and Lynch said that she would accept the FBI's offer but refused to recuse herself from the case. 1 month later, July 5th, 2016, Comey unilaterally released a public statement announcing the end of the mid-year exam investigation of Hillary Clinton, stating that he did not recommend criminal charges against Hillary. The statement acknowledged that 110 emails contained classified information, but he argued that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. In his statement, Comey changed gross negligence to extremely careless to avoid directing criminal liability. Comey's decision was driven in part by concerns about possible leaks of intelligence reports, but he did not notify Lynch in advance to protect the FBI's independence and investigative credibility. In early June of 2017, while testifying before the Senate Intelligence Committee, Comey indirectly referred to a secret intelligence report as having influenced his decision to unilaterally declare the case against Hillary closed. And he said that the Senate was briefed, but that some of the details publicly reported were not true. Around the same time, in July of 2016, the FBI officially launched the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into allegations of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. The newly released report notes that the FBI invested more resources into this investigation than it did into the Hillary investigation. And so, ever since the beginning of 2018, Grassley has been pursuing with the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation the possibility of releasing the classified document. In 2019, Grassley again submitted a request to then Attorney General Bill Barr. In 2020, Grassley, along with Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson, asked then President Donald Trump to declassify the document. And then this year, Grassley renewed his request to Attorney General Pam Bondi. So finally, this time, we have the document from the U.S. Department of Justice suggesting that then FBI Director James Comey mishandled the Hillary email server investigation, and he was influenced by a mysterious confidential intelligence report, that he covered up key evidence, and that he announced the termination of the investigation into former Secretary of State and Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton ahead of schedule. Yesterday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard declassified and released more than 243,000 pages of files related to the 1968 killing of civil rights legend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The National Archives said in a statement that relatives of King had 2 weeks to review the information before the release of the documents. The trove of documents includes details about the Federal Bureau of Investigation's probe into the murder of King. These details highlight all potential leads, investigative progress, and interviews with witnesses. The National Archives website listed thousands of memos, internal communications, and photographs. Meanwhile, archivists are identifying additional files across various agencies, and they will keep uploading documents as they become available. So, reviewing all these files takes time. These documents originated from the FBI and the CIA, among others. Newly released CIA files reveal that the agency tracked James Earl Ray, who was convicted of killing Martin Luther King Jr. as he fled overseas to avoid capture. Marco Rubio, the nation's acting archivist and Secretary of State, said that the National Archives processed the records at an unprecedented speed. Rubio said in a statement, "Today's record release marks a historic step in the Trump administration's ongoing commitment to transparency and accountability." Yesterday, we reported that President Trump vowed on Sunday that the United States would work to help Afghans who have been in the United Arab Emirates ever since the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Those Afghans were reportedly facing repatriation to Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, and now the Trump administration has struck a deal with the United Arab Emirates to stop the forced deportation of those Afghan interpreters and soldiers who assisted the U.S. military. The Trump administration also is beginning the process of vetting them for long-term and safe homes. The intervention by Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles came after Just the News reported the struggles of these Afghan allies of the U.S. military. In response, the Trump administration rushed to help resolve the issue. The United Arab Emirates had been hosting Afghan military refugees for 4 years, but they had begun discussing forced repatriation back to the Taliban. Wiles and Rubio began working on the matter on Saturday. Then President Trump also asked VP Vance to be in charge on Sunday, and within hours, the team had secured an agreement with the United Arab Emirates to keep the Afghan allies safely in the United Arab Emirates. This will be for until the State Department vets them for possible entry into the United States or another Western safe haven. Recently, a report was published in The Telegraph detailing the murder of some 200 Afghan soldiers and police officers. They were hunted down by the Taliban regime after a data leak in the UK. The victims were people who helped the U.S. oust the Taliban and defeat the al-Qaeda terrorists, who were allegedly responsible for the deaths of almost 3,000 Americans on September 11, 2021. Now, the intervention of the Trump administration has renewed hope for the remaining Afghans. Yesterday, the Justice Department announced that a foreign national from Lebanon was sentenced to 44 months in prison. Brian Assi from Lebanon was charged back in October of 2024, and he was now found guilty of conspiring to illegally export and smuggle U.S.-made drill rigs to Iran. John A. Eisenberg, the Assistant Attorney General for National Security, announced the sentencing. Assi illegally exported and smuggled U.S. goods to Iran without a license. He also submitted misleading export information and conspired in a money laundering scheme. Assi was convicted of violating U.S. sanctions laws. These laws prohibit unauthorized trade with Iran. According to trial evidence, Assi worked as a salesman in the Middle East for an international heavy machinery company that had a U.S. subsidiary and manufacturing plant in Florida. Assi conspired with Iranian individuals to buy 2 U.S. origin blast hole drills from the Alachua factory, and they used an Iraqi distributor to conceal Iranian involvement. The drills are used to create holes in the ground to be filled with controlled explosives for mining. Assi attempted to ship the drills from the U.S. to Turkey to further hide Iranian involvement. In order to do so, he disobeyed U.S. export controls and sanctions laws. He helped facilitate the transfer of about $2.7 million from Turkey to the United States. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.